The 16th session of the Senate in the third regular session of the 16th Congress is hereby called to order. Senator Cynthia A. Villar will lead the chamber in prayer.
Let us pray. Almighty God, bless our nation and make it true to the ideas of unity, freedom, justice, and brotherhood. Guard us from calamities, from compromise, fear, and confusion. Be close to our decision makers, both religious and political leaders. Give them vision, wisdom, and understanding to guide their deeds and actions as they serve the people. Make our people more deeply aware of their heritage, realizing not only their rights, but also their duties and responsibilities as citizens, that they should not be part of the problem, but be part of the solution. Make this great nation and all its people know clearly your will, that they may fulfill the destiny ordained for us in the salvation of the nations and the restoring of all things in Christ. Amen.
With the permission of the chamber, we declare a 1-minute recess or suspension of the proceedings. Everyone adjust us. Saan ka na? Tawagan mo siya. Sabihin mo. Saan nga ba? Huwag mo stop nila. Sino ba nandyan? Wala si Ralph, sino pa? Si Sammy Angara, bakit sabihin mo? Ha? Why don't we ask the picture na yung mga... While we are waiting for our colleagues, maybe we can ask the Metro Bank awardees to come up for the photo session so that we can save time. Taking naman po eh.
Okay na ba yung arrangement sa pagila? Dito naman ang daan. Dito po ang daan, mga kapatid. This way.
I-guide nyo nga yung mga...
Cayetano nag-serve na. O yung same arrangement. O yung aming partner sa Rotary. Tama ako kay Senator. Okay. Senator. Sir. Ayos yung same arrangement kanina. Yung same arrangement as kanina. Oh, ang sarap ako. So, share kayo. Doon kayo sa likod ni Yan. Senator Lapid, tanig po kayo. Partners. Yeah. Singit-singit yung ayos ninyo kanina.
The session is resumed. The Secretary will call the roll.
Roll call of members. The Honorable Senators Angara, Aquino, Binay, Cayetano Alan Peter Compañero S, Cayetano Pia S, Defensor Santiago, Ejercito, Enrile, Escudero, Estrada, Gingona, Honasan, Lapid, Legarda, Marcos, Usmeña, Pimentel, Po, Recto, Revilla, Soto, Trillanes, Villar. Senate President Drilon.
15 senators are present. The chair declares the presence of a quorum. The Majority Leader.
Good afternoon, Mr. President. I move that we dispense with the reading of the journal of the 15th session, August 26, 2015, and consider the same as approved.
Any objection? Hearing none. The reading of the journal of session number 15 is dispensed with and the same is hereby approved.
With the consent of the Senate, I move that we consider on third reading Senate Bill number 2890 under Committee Report number 199. This is the bill on the expanding the benefits and privileges of persons with disability, Mr. President.
Consideration of the measure of third reading is in order.
With the consent of our colleagues, may we request the Secretary to read only the title of the bill without prejudice to inserting into the Senate Journal and Record the whole text thereof.
The Secretary will do so.
Senate number 2890, an act expanding the benefits and privileges of persons with disability, PWD, amending for this purpose Section 32 of Republic Act number 7277, otherwise known as the Magna Carta for Persons with Disability as amended, and Section 35B of Republic Act number 8424, otherwise known as the National Internal Revenue Code of 1997 as amended.
Majority Leader.
Mr. President, copies of this measure as approved on second reading had been distributed to the members of the Senate last August 25, 2015, thereby complying with the 3-day rule found under Section 26, Paragraph 2, Article 6 of the 1987 Constitution. We are thus ready to approve the measure on third reading. May I ask for a roll call vote, Mr. President?
Secretary is directed to conduct a roll call vote.
The Honorable Senators Angara, Aquino, Binay, Cayetano Alan, Peter Compañero S., Cayetano P.I.S., Defensor Santiago, Ejercito, Enrile, Escudero, Estrada, Gingona, Unasan, Lapid, Legarda, Marcos, Usmeña, Pimentel, Poe, Recto, Revilla, Soto, Trillanes, Villar. Senate President Trilon.
16 affirmative votes, no negative votes, no abstentions. Senate Bill 2890 is approved on third reading.
Thank you, Mr. President. With the consent of the Senate, I move that we consider on third reading Senate Bill number 2270 under Committee Report number 41. This is the bill on the fundamental equality of men and women under the laws of marriage, Mr. President.
Consideration of the measure on third reading is in order.
With the consent of the body, may we request the Secretary to read only the title of the said bill without prejudice to inserting into the Senate Journal Record the whole text thereof.
Secretary will do so.
Senate Number 2270, an act ensuring the fundamental equality of men and women under the laws on marriage and family relations, amending for the purpose Executive Order Number 209, otherwise known as the Family Code of the Philippines, and for other purposes.
Mr. President, copies of this measure as approved on second reading have been distributed to the members of the Senate last August 27, 2015, thereby complying with the 3-day rule found under Section 26, Paragraph 2, Article 6 of the Philippine Constitution. We are thus ready to approve the measure on third reading. I ask for a roll call vote.
Secretary will conduct the roll call vote.
Honorable Senators Angara, Aquino, Binay, Cayetano Alan, Peter Compañero S., Cayetano P.I.S., Defensor Santiago, Ejercito, Enrile, Escudero, Estrada, Gingona, Hunasan, Lapid, Legarda, Marcos, Usmeña, Pimentel, Poe, Recto, Revilla, Soto, Trillanes, Villar. Senate President Trilon.
16 affirmative votes, no negative votes, no abstention. Senate Bill 2270 is hereby approved on third reading.
Mr. President, I move that we proceed with the reference of business.
The Secretary will read the reference of business.
Bill on first reading. Senate Number 2916, entitled An Act Declaring January 25 of every year as a special working holiday throughout the country to commemorate the heroism and sacrifice of the fallen 44 of the Philippine National Police Special Action Force, introduced by Senator Maria Lourdes Nancy S. Binay.
Public order and dangerous drugs.
Resolution, PS Resolution Number 1545, a resolution honoring and commending the 10 outstanding teachers of 2015 awarded by the Metrobank Foundation, Inc., introduced by Senator Cayetano P.
Rules.
Additional reference of business. Messages from the House of Representatives, letter from the House of Representatives informing the Senate that on 24 August 2015, it designated Representatives Ferrer, Ako, Pagdilao, Batawil, Garcia, Lejano, Asidilio, Romualdo, and Halos as conference to the Bicameral Conference Committee on the Disagreeing Provisions of House Number 5822, entitled An Act Preventing the Proliferation of Weapons of Mass Destruction by Regulating the Provision of Technical Assistance, Brokering, Financing, and Transporting Services in relation to the management of trade in strategic goods, and Senate Number 2762, entitled An Act Preventing the Proliferation of Weapons of Mass Destruction by Managing the Trade in Strategic Goods, the Provision of Related Services, and for other purposes.
Committee on Rules.
Letter from the House of Representatives informing the Senate that on 24 August 2015, it passed the following House bills in which it requests the concurrence of the Senate. House Number 2716, entitled An Act Converting the Land Transportation Office LTO, Extension Office located in the city of Cabadbaran, Agusan del Norte, into a regular LTO District Office and appropriating funds therefore. House Number 4784, entitled An Act Converting the Land Transportation Office LTO, Extension Office located in the city of Tagaytay, Province of Cavite, into a regular District Office and appropriating funds therefore. And House Number 5911, entitled An Act Requiring the Mandatory Installation of a Speed Limiter in Public Utility and Certain Types of Vehicles.
Committee on Public Services and Finance. Before we go to the next measure, may the chair suggest that we finish we take up again the reference of business towards the end of our session, as there are a number of resolutions that we have to pass, and the interpellation and on the BBL and the co-sponsorship of one measure be given priority. We can always take up the reference of business towards the end of the session. So, Mr. Majority Leader, the chair is ready to receive a motion to defer.
Mr. President, I move that we temporarily.
Yes.
Mr. President, I move that we suspend the reference of business and continue with some resolutions in the meantime.
Any objection? Hearing none.
Mr. President, with the consent of the Senate, I move that we consider Senate Resolution number 1466, taking into consideration Senate Resolution 1526 and 1545.
Any objection? Hearing none. Consideration of the measure is in order.
With the consent of the Senate, may I request the Secretary to read the title of the said measure.
Secretary will read the title of the measure.
PS Resolution number 1466. Resolution congratulating and commending the awardees for the 2015 Search for Outstanding Teachers honored by the Metrobank Foundation, Inc. Whereas the Search for Outstanding Teachers is an annual search undertaken by the Metrobank Foundation, Inc. in consonance with its commitment to promote a culture of excellence in education by recognizing the country's best mentors who can be upheld as models not only for educators but for other community members as well. Whereas the Metrobank Foundation, Inc. has been conducting the search for outstanding teachers since 1985 in recognition of the profound commitment to the development of the youth through exemplary competence, remarkable dedication to their work, and an effective educational leadership. Whereas the search for outstanding teachers awardees were selected from 467 nominees coming from various public and private educational institutions in the country, of which 110 qualified as provincial finalists, which was narrowed down to 40 regional finalists who underwent interviews and teaching demonstrations before the members of the preliminary board of judges identified for each category, 20 of whom were selected to become the national finalists then, who faced the final board of judges for this year's search, chaired by House Deputy Speaker and Antipolo City 1st District Representative Roberto Bipuno, and co-chaired by Chairman Teresita Gerbosa of the Securities and Exchange Commission, with Taguig City Mayor Maria Laarni L. Cayetano, Far Eastern University President Dr. Michael M. Alba, Don Bosco Technical College Rector Father Vitalino Chito S. Dimaranan, SDB, Philippine Stock Exchange President and Chief Executive Officer Hans B. Sicat, and kapisanan ng mga broadcaster ng Pilipinas, Chair Roberto S. Nictao Jr. as members of the Board of Judges. Whereas this year's winners will join the rank of outstanding teachers who have been honored by the Foundation for the last 30 years and will automatically become members of the network of outstanding teachers and educators, or noted an honor society of outstanding teachers committed to nurturing a culture of excellence and service among educators through professional development, publications, research, and advocacy in active partnership with government and non-government organizations. Whereas the Philippine Senate proudly joins the Metrobank Foundation, Inc. in congratulating and commending the educators who have served as infrastructures for continuing excellence and provided greater impact on the respective spheres of influence through the 2015 search for outstanding teachers. Resolved as it is hereby resolved that the Philippine Senate congratulate and commend the 2015 search for outstanding teachers awardees honored by the Metrobank Foundation, Inc., namely from the elementary level: 1. Reggie F. Palmos of West Visayas State University in La Paz, Iloilo City. 2. Benjamin M. Castro of Francisco Benitez Elementary School in Tondo, Manila. 3. Amsi M. Esteban of Ligarda Elementary School in Sampaloc, Manila. 4. Irene G. De La Cruz of Carmona Elementary School in Carmona, Cavite. From the secondary level: 5. Ronaldo C. Reyes of Tobacco National High School in Tobacco City, Albay. 6. Mirna B. Libotake of Philippine Science High School, Western Visayas Campus in Haro, Iloilo City. 7. Milagros C. Banan of Ernesto Rondon High School in Quezon City. 8. Hernanes Fernandez Jr. of Palo National High School in Palo, Leyte. From the higher education level: 9. Thomas Edison E. De La Cruz of the University of Santo Tomas. 10, Annalyn Salvador Amores of the University of the Philippines, Baguio.
Majority Leader.
Mr. President, I move that we recognize Senator Pia to give her sponsorship speech of the said resolutions.
Senator Pia Cayetano is recognized to sponsor the measures.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, esteemed colleagues, I rise today to sponsor Senate Resolution number 1545, which honors and commends the 10 outstanding teachers of 2015 awarded by the Metrobank Foundation, Inc. Teachers answer a noble calling, and in so doing, undertake an important role not only in honing the mind and training the skills of our children, but also in shaping their character from a young age. Next to our parents, teachers have a significant impact in the lives of their students. Despite the many difficulties they face, teachers remain steadfast in their chosen duty to mold and educate the youth of today. At a time when our teachers are in demand all over the world, it is even more meaningful that we honor these outstanding men and women who chose to stay despite more lucrative options abroad. I am aware of the sacrifices teachers make. I come from a family of teachers. My grandmother, Juliana Cayetano, was a public school teacher, and my own mother, Sandra, was a preschool teacher. I have seen the passion, patience, and commitment that is required of and exacted from our teachers. It is with pride that I acknowledge the roll of honors for the 2015 search for outstanding teachers in elementary, secondary, and higher education levels who are here with us today. These brilliant individuals have exhibited perseverance, discipline, and upstanding moral character, truly deserving of recognition. They serve as excellent role models for our youth, as well as a source of inspiration to fellow educators that the work they do is appreciated beyond measure. I likewise congratulate Metrobank Foundation for once again, for the last 30 years, successfully conducting the daunting task of searching, sifting through, and finally selecting the 10 outstanding teachers of the year. May our teachers continue to aspire for excellence and through their work inspire the youth and contribute to the development of the greatest wealth of our nation, the Filipino people. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Cayetano. Majority Leader.
Sir President, I move that we approve proposed Senate Resolution number 1466, taking into consideration proposed Senate Resolution number 1526 and 1545, subject to style.
Any objection? Hearing none. Proposed Senate Resolution number 1466, taking into consideration proposed Senate Resolution number 1526 and 1545 is hereby adopted.
Thank you, Mr. President. With the consent of the Senate, I move that we consider proposed Senate Resolution 1445, taking into consideration proposed Senate Resolution 1465 and 1524.
Any objection? Hearing none, consideration of the measure is in order.
With the consent of the Senate, may I request the Secretary to read the title of the said measure.
Secretary is directed to do so.
Yes, Resolution number 1445, resolution honoring and commending the outstanding Philippine soldiers TOPS of 2015 awarded by the Metrobank Foundation, Inc. and the Rotary Club of Makati Metro. Whereas the outstanding Philippine soldiers search, launched in 1999, is an annual project of the Metrobank Foundation, Inc. in partnership with the Rotary Club of Makati Metro with the objective of honoring excellence in the military service. Whereas the competition is an expression of gratitude to the heroism, dedication, and sacrifices of the gallant men and women of the Armed Forces of the Philippines. In 2003, the Search for TOPS became a Career Achievement Award that recognizes the contribution of the soldier's best 7 years of his or her service in the military. Whereas the Search awards a maximum 10 winners, which shall be chosen from among all commissioned officers from the major branches of military service with the rank of captain up to colonel, and enlisted personnel who are at least in the active service of 7 years, and from among all commissioned officers with the rank of captain up to colonel of the technical and administrative service, TAS, of the AFP. Whereas the competition raises the model of excellence within the military, which the other soldiers should emulate, represents the ideals being upheld by the larger sector of the national community represented by both the Metrobank Foundation, Inc. and Rotary Club of Makati Metro, and likewise highlight the contribution of the AFP and peace, security, nation building, and development. Whereas the roll of honor for this year's winners for the Search for TOPS consists of 3 men from the Philippine Army, 2 men and 1 woman, from the Philippine Air Force, 3 men from Philippine Navy, and 1 woman from the Technical and Administrative Service Medical Corps of the AFP. For the Philippine Army, Commissioned Officer Category 1, Colonel Danilo Hines Pamunag, Philippine Army GSC, Regiment Commander, Light Reaction Regiment, 4th Ramon Magsaysay, Palayan City. Enlisted Personnel Category 2, Master Sergeant Arnel Guerrero Cariaga, Philippine Army, Sergeant Major, Geospatial Intelligence Group, Intelligence Service, Armed Forces of the Philippines, Camp General Emilio Aguinaldo, Quezon City. 3, Master Sergeant Ferdinand Cabungcal Lascano, Philippine Army, Chief Clerk, Military Intelligence Group 23, Intelligence Service, Armed Forces of the Philippines, Camp General Emilio Aguinaldo, Quezon City. For the Philippine Navy, Commissioned Officer Category 1, Colonel Ariel Reyes Kakulitan, PNN, GSC, Assistant Chief of Naval Staff for Personnel N1, Headquarters, Philippine Navy Naval Station, Jose V. Andrada, Ross Boulevard, Manila. Enlisted Personnel Category 2, Technical Sergeant Romel Bustamante Bancairin, PNM, Assistant Team Leader, Military Intelligence Group 9, Intelligence Service, Armed Forces of the Philippines, Western Mindanao Command, Camp General Basilio Navarro, Zamboanga City. 3, Disbursing Clerk, 3rd Class Dennis Lara Cochea Gorea, PN, Petty Officer in Charge, Counterintelligence Field Operation Unit, Naval Intelligence Security Force, Naval Station Jose Francisco, Taguig City. For the Philippine Air Force, Commissioned Officer Category 1, Colonel Maxima Oximoso Ignacio, PAF, GSC, the Air Force Adjutant, Philippine Air Force, Headquarters, Philippine Air Force, Colonel Jesus Villamor, Air Base, Pasay City. Enlisted Personnel Category 2, Senior Master Sergeant Romeo Castro, Austria, Assistant AFP Sergeant Major for the Philippine Air Force, Camp General Emilio Aguinaldo, Quezon City. 3, Staff Sergeant Adriano Luzong Reginales Jr., PAF, Assistant First Sergeant Communications, Electronics, and Information System, Headquarters, Administrative Squadron 15, Strike Wing, Major Danilo Atienza, Air Base, Sangley Point, Cavite. For the Technical and Administrative Service Medical Corps, Major Jonah Dalida Dalagit, MC, Executive Officer and Chief of Clinics, Camp Evangelista Station Hospital, 4th Infantry Division, Philippine Army, Cagayan de Oro City. Now therefore be it resolved, as it is hereby resolved, that the Philippine Senate honors and commends the outstanding Philippine soldiers of 2015 awarded by the Metrobank Foundation, Inc. and the Rotary Club of Manila Metro.
Majority Leader.
Mr. President, I move that we approve proposed Senate Resolution 1445, taking into consideration proposed Senate Resolution 1465 and 1524, subject to style.
Any objection? Hearing none. Proposed Senate Resolution number 1445, taking into consideration proposed Senate Resolution 1465 and 1524, is hereby approved and adopted.
Thank you, Mr. President. With the
Thank you.
consent of the Senate, I move that we consider proposed Senate Resolution 1496, take into consideration proposed Senate Resolution 1504 and 1525.
Any objection? Hearing none. Consideration of the measure is in order.
With the consent of the Senate, may I request the Secretary to read the title of the said measure.
Secretary will do so.
PS Resolution number 1496, resolution congratulating and commending the 2015 country's outstanding police officers in service, COPS, awarded by the Metrobank Foundation, Inc. and the Rotary Club of New Manila East, co-presented with PS Bank, whereas the country's outstanding policemen in service, COPS, is an annual search undertaken by the Metrobank Foundation and the Rotary Club of New Manila East, co-presented with PS Bank and implemented in close coordination with the Philippine National Police in consonance with the conviction of said organizations to honor Filipino excellence and present wellsprings of hope in the future of our nation. Whereas the Rotary Club of New Manila East has been conducting the best community-oriented policemen since 1998 in recognition of the vocational and community service component of police work for the quest of peace and order over that of the punitive aspect. Whereas in 1999, the Metrobank Foundation, Inc. set up an endowment fund of 10 million pesos specifically for the recognition of outstanding policemen. Whereas since the competition started in 2003, the Metrobank Foundation, Inc. and the Rotary Club of New Manila East jointly implemented the search for COPS, wherein the former, utilizing its experience in running similar contests, such as the search for outstanding teachers, has provided technical and logistical assistance to further improve and professionalize the competition. Whereas in December 2007, PS Bank joined the Metrobank Foundation Inc. and the Rotary Club of New Manila East in sustaining the program, which recognizes the shared responsibility between the police force and the community in the prevention and resolution of crimes. Whereas the competition selects a maximum of 10 winners, which shall be chosen from among all commissioned and non-commissioned officers with the rank of inspector to superintendent and PO1 to SPO4 respectively. Whereas the Senate of the Philippines proudly joins the Metrobank Foundation Inc., the Rotary Club of New Manila East, PS Bank, and the PNP in paying tribute to the exemplary valor, gallantry, and selfless efforts of our policemen who have actively solicited, mobilized, involved, and organized the community to become fellow vanguards of the community through the 2015 search for the country's outstanding policemen in service. Resolved, as it is hereby resolved that the Senate of the Philippines congratulate and commend the 2015 country's outstanding policemen in service awarded by the Metrobank Foundation and the Rotary Club of New Manila East, co-presented with PS Bank and implemented in close coordination with the Philippine National Police, namely, from the Commissioned Officers Category 1, Police Senior Superintendent Marlo Sanchez Meneses. 2. Police Senior Inspector Marie Cris Ibanez Mulat. 3. Police Senior Superintendent Camilo Pancrasius Pascua Cascolan. 4. Police Senior Superintendent Valfrey Gacias Tabian. From the non-commissioned officers category, 5. Police Officer 2 Adolfo Campos Andrada. 6. Senior Police Officer 4 Florante Balada Dubina. 7. Senior Police Officer 1 Aurora Joy Del Rosario Manuela. 8. Senior Police Officer 3 Dino Soy A. Sagayo. 9. Senior Police Officer 2 Dominador Mastasisa Canlas. 10. Police Officer 2 Mary Catherine Baril de Montaño.
Majority Leader.
Sir President, I move that we approve proposed Senate Resolution 1496, take into consideration proposed Senate Resolution 1504 and 1525.
Any objection? Hearing none. Proposed Senate Resolution 1265. Oh, I'm sorry.
1496, Mr. President.
1496. Taking into consideration proposed Senate Bill 1504 is hereby approved and adopted.
Sir President, may we recognize the Deputy Minority Leader to
Congratulations to our
make
Metrobank Award. Thank you. Yes,
Mr. President.
Senator Soto is
Thank you,
recognized.
Mr. President. Allow me to echo what you just said. Congratulations. I address this message to the teachers, the soldiers, and the police. Congratulations on your being awarded as one of the outstanding Philippine soldiers, the outstanding teachers, and the country's outstanding police officers in service in the 2015 Metrobank Foundation Search for Outstanding Soldiers, Teachers, and Police Officers. You are a shining example of unwavering dedication and commitment in your respective fields. Future members of the armed forces, academe, and police force will see in you someone to emulate and inspire them. We take this occasion also, Mr. President, to recognize the Metrobank Foundation for sponsoring this search for the best among the professional pillars of society in security, education, and peace and order. These areas of concern, since the beginning of cities and states, are the most vital services to make a community united, progressive, and safe. We hope that Metrobank continues this worthy endeavor. Once again, congratulations, and please accept our heartfelt congratulations in the Senate and from the whole nation for a job well done. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Soto. Majority Leader.
Mr. President, may I ask for a minute suspension?
Session suspended for 1 minute.
SSS ka ba? Ready to resume, Mr. President.
Session is resumed.
Mr. President, before we take up the SSS pension increase, again, we'd like to congratulate all the awardees of the Metrobank, the Metrobank awardees, and we have already congratulated them personally with the picture photo op before we pass the resolutions. Mr. President, with the consent of the Senate, I move that we resume consideration of House Bill 5842 under Committee Report number 213. This is the bill on Social Security, Mr. President.
This is a co-sponsorship speech.
Of Senator Ejercito, Mr. President.
Yes. Senator Ejercito is recognized to deliver a co-sponsorship speech on House Bill 5842 under Committee Report 213.
Good afternoon, Mr. President. I'm privileged to sponsor today Committee Report number 213 that will look after the welfare of our retired workforce by recommending House Bill number 5842, mandating a 2,000 across-the-board increase in their monthly pension under the Social Security system. It seeks to amend Section 12 of Republic Act number 1161. I filed a similar bill here in the Senate, though my goal was to grant pensioners additional 3,000 across the board for their monthly pension, plus another 500 for its annual increase until it reached 5,000 pesos. I'm proud nonetheless of this measure, for it is in line with the policy of the state to promote social security services suitable to the needs of the people, and which shall promote social justice and provide meaningful protection to members and their beneficiaries against the hazards of disability, sickness, maternity, old age, death, and other contingencies resulting in loss of income or financial burden. At present, the monthly pension that our retirees and other pensioners have been receiving is not enough to cover the basic needs that the family need. For those SSS members who has 10 credited years of service, they are only receiving 1,200 pesos. Ilang kilong bigas lang nga ba ang mabibili ng 1,200? Paano na pambili ng ulam at gamot, pambayad sa kuryente at tubig? Kulang na kulang ang 1,200. Karamihan sa ating pensioner, itong 1,200 lamang ang inaasahan buwan-buwan na magagamit panggastos araw-araw. It is high time that such monthly pensions be increased. Hayaan naman natin silang mabuhay na matiwasay at hindi kumakalam ang mga tiyan. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, it is my hope that all of us, together with Senator Cynthia Villar, Chairman of the Committee on Government Corporations and Public Enterprises, pass the proposed measure before this year ends. It would be a great early Christmas gift to our pensioners. Thank you, Mr. President. Good afternoon.
Thank you, Senator Ejercito.
Just for clarification, Mr. President, that was the co-sponsorship speech. Senator Villar delivered the sponsorship speech. I move that we suspend consideration of House Bill 5842 under Committee Report number 213.
Before we do so, in the last session, Senator Recto also manifested his desire to do a co-sponsorship speech.
We have scheduled it for tomorrow, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. So we will resume consideration of the measure tomorrow. In the meantime, consideration of House Bill 5842 is suspended.
With the consent of the Senate, I move that we resume consideration of Senate Bill 2894 under Committee Report number 200. This is the bill on the basic law for Bangsamoro Autonomous Region, Mr. President.
Resumption of the consideration of the measure is in order.
Mr. President, the parliamentary status is that we are in the period of interpellation. I thus move that we recognize the sponsor, Senator Marcos.
Senator Marcos is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President.
May I ask for a minute suspension?
1 minute suspension.
sige.
Alan, there's a BICAM report.
Instead of reading the, I just say that the Senate provision for because kasi it's my first time BICAM kasi yung measures na tapos. What is the procedure? What do you make? You just say, you just give us some. Buying time lang, buying time. Buying time. Actually, we adopted most of the Senate. Can I just say that? Can I just say that? Actually, nag-depreciate ang peso recently, so you can say, it's time to appreciate, it again. Ba't di ba kaya? Ikaw lang may kaya doon. Hindi ko kaya. I will meet delivery man, so maano tayo, makakanood tayo. What do I say? We have a ng peso sa bawat Pilipino. Can I say that? I'd like to read it to the record. The joint explanation. Kaya we would like to read it. We would like it read. Not read it. Read it. Considered. So nabigay na sa
Oh. Ano nangyari? Ha?
Ready to resume, Mr. President.
Session is resumed. Majority Leader.
Mr. President, I move that we suspend consideration in the meantime of Senate Resolution 2894 just to give way to the ratification of a BICAM report. Then
All right.
we will resume consideration of this after the BICAM report.
The consideration of the Senate Bill 2894 is suspended. Majority Leader.
Mr. President, I move that we are in receipt now of the joint explanation of the bicameral conference committee report on disagreeing provisions of House Bill 4275 and Senate Bill number 1386. I move that we take up this bicameral conference
For the
committee.
information of the Chair, what is the BICAM report?
This is on the expanded
What is subject,
peso bill, Mr. President.
Sorry?
On the expanded Public Employment Service Office. The
Okay.
peso has been depreciating, so we have to appreciate the peso now. Mr.
Okay, the consideration of the measure is in order. The Chair is ready to give the floor to
Mr. President, may we recognize Senator Angara, the chairman
Senator
and
Angara.
sponsor of this measure.
to
Mr.
surrender the report.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, Majority Leader, thank you, Mr. Majority Leader. On behalf of the chairman, Senator Jinggoy Estrada, as acting chair of the Committee on Labor, we'd like to sponsor the conference committee report on the disagreeing provisions of House Bill 4275 and Senate Bill 1386. This is the bill to amend the peso law, and I'd just like to report to our colleagues that the versions of the Senate were, or the provisions of the Senate version were adopted during a BICAM held last week. And if I may move, Mr. President, that the relevant explanation, the joint explanation of the bicameral conference committee on the disagreeing provisions, be considered as read into the records, Mr. President. I so move.
The chair would like to have a copy of the explanation here of the report. Okay, the chair has it now. There is the sponsor has moved that the joint explanation on the disagreeing provisions should be considered as read into the record. What does the majority leader say?
There are no objections from the floor, Mr. President.
There being no objection, the joint explanation is considered as read into the record.
Yeah, Mr. President, if there are no objections from the members, if the body may adopt the said report.
Second the motion, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none. The bicameral conference committee report on the disagreeing provisions of House Bill 4275 and Senate Bill 1386 is hereby approved.
Mr. President, may we congratulate Senator Gara. Surely that will help our kababayans who are trying to find work, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. President. And we thank the majority leader because he inserted a number of provisions which made the bill a better bill, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I move that we resume consideration of Senate Bill 2894 under Committee Report number 200. This is the bill on the basic law for the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region, Mr. President.
Any objection here?
Mr. President, may we recognize Senator Marcos and Senator Pia Cayetano.
Senator Marcos, the principal sponsor of the measure, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President.
And to avail of the period of interpellation, Senator Pia Cayetano is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. With the permission of the sponsor, I would like to continue my interpellation.
Certainly, Mr. President, I yield to the gentle lady from Taguig.
Today I will focus on the Bangsamoro Parliament, which is Section 35 and onward. Section 35 states that the Parliament shall be composed of at least 60 members. And then Section 36 goes on to provide some details. It states that the seats shall be classified and allocated as follows. So 40 members shall be elected from parliamentary districts, and then 8 members shall be representatives of political parties who will win seats through a system of proportional representation based on the whole Bangsamoro geographical area. And then there's a provision on reserved seats for sectoral representatives. It states sectoral representatives shall include at least 2 reserved seats each for non-Moro indigenous community and settler communities, women, youth, sultanates, and representatives from labor sector. So my question, Mr. President, is to just help me understand this allocation. For number 1, 36, subparagraph 1, that is 40, I think that's quite clear. For number 2, party representatives, that's 8. So we are left with 12 seats. That will be for reserved seats, sector representatives. Is that correct?
Yes, Mr. President, that will put us to a total of 60 members of the Bangsamoro Parliament.
And then for the 12, under subparagraph number 3, it says two reserved seats each for non-Moro, so that's 1, non-Moro indigenous communities, 2 settler communities, and then the next sentence says women, youth, sultanate, and representatives from labor. So that's, I mentioned 6 groups, so if that's 2 each, then is that 12? But then I'm confused because the next paragraph says women, youth, sultanate, and representatives from labor shall also have a reserved seat. So is that 1 each? Maybe His Honor can explain this a little bit. I can't seem to add it up.
Yes, understandable. I just noted that is a typo, Mr. President. That is to be 2 for each sector.
Okay, so 2
Therefore,
each.
the total, since we have mentioned 6 sectors, times 2, that will be 12
Okay.
seats for sectoral representatives.
Okay, thank you. That's clearer. So, which now goes to the meat of my interpellation. Worldwide, Mr. President, there is a call for more women representation. And there is actually a specific percentage that was recommended by the United Nations, and these are based on specific targets to get more women, to be honest, both in the political, government, and professional sector. And that target, Mr. President, originally was at 30%, with a view towards achieving equal representation, which means roughly 50, although this is now interpreted that anything between 40 moving towards 50 is more or less equal enough. So that really is the goal internationally, Mr. President. So I would like to know if His Honor is open, and I do take note that His Honor had said early on that he is open to all kinds of amendments. But if His Honor understands and sees the wisdom of carving out women, it is not just my advocacy because it is, but it is an international standard that I believe is correct, because you can divide representatives in 5 or 100 different ways. But the reality is there will always more or less be half women and half men. And for that reason, I believe that it is not sufficient that we simply classify women as one typical sector.
Perhaps certainly the points made by the representation from the good senator is certainly true, and that we have to approach, at the very least, try to approach 50%. The original version of in the draft BBL, there were no sectoral representatives, and this has been the product, in fact, of the additional hearings that we conducted with the sectors who felt that they had not been consulted during the negotiations. And what they asked for was, in fact, reserved seats for the so-called women's sector, and we discussed it with them. There also is a bit of a fudge factor here, Mr. President, because we tried to maintain the original number of 60 members. So if we are already, what we did was, instead of having 60% of the Bangsamoro Parliament be appointed by the Bangsamoro government, we made it, we lessened it, so that the principle of democratic representation would be better addressed. There was no specific argument made as to how we can approach the 50% number in the entire Bangsamoro Parliament. I think that if we can perhaps increase that to a greater number to try and align ourselves more with the international standards as set and as brought up by the senator. But we now will have to look again, if we are willing to increase the number of parliamentary members of Bangsamoro Parliament beyond the 60. If we are willing to do that, then certainly the other sectors, I'm sure, and we can even increase the party list members, because what is on paragraph 2 really speaks about the party list type representatives. So I have no objection to increasing that, but we have to decide upon the number of actual members of parliament at that point. We are beginning to we will have changed. We try to stay within the draft, as many of the draft proposals as we could possibly do, and this was the best compromise that we felt, considering that this is what was requested of us when we spoke of when we spoke to women's groups. So certainly, we will certainly be happy. The committee would certainly be happy to entertain any suggestions or proposals to amend that and to change them. Make the sectoral representatives for women non-typical and not just assign 2 seats as well together with the other so-called sectors. But again, we will be from the draft Bangsamoro Basic Law with its attendant issues that raises. But again, in principle, as a practical matter, certainly we have to look at all of those issues. But certainly, in principle, I do not see any particular objection to revisiting the issue of sectoral representatives for women. The issue that was raised is that there have been examples of where women have been treated to a lesser standard than men when it comes to some of the Muslim communities that we see around the world. Now, I do not think that has been prevalent in our case, but again, it is an issue that certainly we will take note of, and we are open to any suggestions that we feel can be justified in increasing the sectoral representatives of women, of the women's groups.
Thank you, Mr. President. Actually, there are, I gather that it's just a question of how to go about it. That's how I'm hearing it in a way from His Honor, and I understand the difficulty of really being able to take into consideration all the different concerns. But there is a way to address this. I would be happy to present my recommendations. Currently, all over the world, there are quota systems in place to ensure more women representation. In fact, I am actually reviewing a bill that was presented to me. I am not per se a staunch advocate of quota systems, only because I believe that number one, both men and women can advocate for women's rights, and I have seen women representatives who do not advocate for women's rights. So my advocacy of more women in Parliament would include an education and information campaign that is very thorough. And the interesting development is COMELEC now has a very active GAD program, and they will be going around the country to educate more our citizens more on the need for more women to be participative in political decision making, including running for office, including supporting candidates that understand women's issues. So on that note, Mr. President, there are ways wherein, without necessarily increasing the number of representatives or touching Section 3, we can increase their participation through items subsection 1 and 2 of Section 36. This would be by way of ensuring that political parties, when they file their candidacy, manifest or state under oath that they have included in their selection process women who could possibly be their candidates. In other words, there is an earnest effort to include women as their candidates, and that they went through the various steps of encouraging more women to participate. Because without this, studies are clear that it will take a very, very long time for women to come up to speed. In the Philippines specifically, let's talk about our own experience. In the Senate, we have reached an all-time high of 6 women out of 24. In the 2010 senatorial election, if I'm not mistaken, the political party I ran with, the Nationalista Party, we actually had 6 women candidates. 5 ran as senators, and then Senator Lauren Legarda was running as VP. So that is, I think, also an all-time high. So part of the measures we can take is ensuring that let me rephrase that. One of the important measures we should take is not just saying that people elect women. I don't even believe that I don't believe that is the right way to go. It's ensuring that political parties include women in the political process, making them viable candidates when the election time comes. So those are the kind of amendments I hope to make at the proper time. Sorry, but going back to the figures that I was putting on record, the Senate has an all-time high of 6 out of 24 seats. That is 25%. The House of Representatives also has 25%. I am not sure if this is an all-time high, but I do know that the Congress before that was lower, so I think this is a good number. And then the ARMM Regional Legislative Assembly has 16%. So that on its own already tells us that there is a good 10% gap now between what we see in the existing ARMM Regional Legislative Assembly versus the national. And thus, I do hope to make these amendments at the proper time.
Yes, Mr. President. Certainly, as the lady has pointed out, we do not necessarily need to depend upon the sectoral representatives for women's groups for us to achieve some kind of equality in terms of women's representation. What immediately comes to mind is paragraph 2, where you have the party list representatives whose advocacy ideology could include, not necessarily be limited to, but could certainly include some women's issues, whatever they may be, and that could be part, again, of their campaign. Their campaign program to include some women advocacies that could be identified as supportive of women's issues. Furthermore, again, as in the general district seats in the ARM, we have already 16%, and if we could encourage even more, maybe male, maybe female, but certainly more of the candidates for as members of the Bangsamoro Parliament to include within their platform the support or the advocacy, once again, of certain issues that are clearly supportive of women's rights, supportive of women's issues. And I think that there is a way to do it, perhaps not structurally, but again, to encourage, I think is the best thing we can do. We can, of course, always do the structural changes and impose some kind of quota. But I am in agreement with the lady senator that this may not be the best way to do it. I think what could be a more effective way of bringing to the fore the issues of women's rights and other women's issues that as they have been advocated, to bring that to the fore is to include in the political program of any candidate and to encourage the voters in the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region to be supportive of women's rights. I think that is something that can be easily endorsed, that can be easily encouraged, that is perhaps maybe a process of education. Again, it does not necessarily need a structural change. However, even a structural change, if we think it is necessary, is something we can do. So I'm happy to explore any other options that we could have so that women's rights can be fully represented in the Bangsamoro Parliament. The differing methods that we have talked about today, and perhaps if we could come up for other methods, perhaps we could also think of not only the Bangsamoro Parliament, but also within the Bangsamoro government, as put out in the basic law. It is the Bangsamoro government needs to be organized, its agencies and its offices, and in that we could also encourage or even impose a quota for or even an agency and an office within the Bangsamoro government where that will advocate and that will support and that will espouse the the advocacy of women's rights. So it is not only in the Bangsamoro Parliament where that representation can be. We can also think of within the Bangsamoro government as it is going to be organized.
Mr. President.
Go ahead. Let me just continue. There is, besides, again, to go beyond the Bangsamoro Parliament, there is also on Section 27, a representation of women in the Council of Elders. That is Section 27 on page 22 of the substitute bill, where we have included representation of women in the Council of Elders. Furthermore, we have the reserved seats in the sectoral representatives. And in Section 76, we also have a section which has to do with the participation of women in the Bangsamoro cabinet. In Section 118, there is also reserved recruitment, training, and education for women in the Bangsamoro Autonomous Regional Police. That is something that is a new concept. In Section 163, there is also the Bangsamoro regional government's recognition of the role of women in governance and that they should ensure the fundamental equality before law of women and men. And finally, in Section 196, we also speak of the representation of women in the Bangsamoro Transition Authority. So even if we cannot approach the 50% in the Parliament, there are other agencies and organs of government wherein we are encouraging, at the very least, and in some cases imposing these quotas for women's representation.
Thank you for pointing out those provisions, Mr. President. I've noted them and will study them in more detail. But what I do want to emphasize is that in all sectors of society, if we look at it, the decision makers are mostly men, mostly. And in my during the times that I have personally been a candidate, which is twice, and then the other times that I have campaigned for colleagues of mine or candidates that I supported, it is very common for me to hear as a response to my query, do you have women representatives? Are you representing the interests of women? It is very common for me to hear the response is, yes, we have one candidate. So if there is a slate of 6 or 8 or 12 councilors or provincial board members, it is not uncommon to have 1 in 6, 1 in 10, 2 in 12. And that is understood by many to be sufficient representation. What I am trying to get across, Mr. President, is the fact that women's decisions, women's points of view must be taken into consideration in every aspect of society. In other words, when we speak of the concerns of senior citizens, when we speak of the input of the elders, when we speak of economic development, when we think of schools, it must always include the perspective of women, and a representative, a female representative, is not enough. Why? Because it is very easy for that one representative to get overruled. The perspective that we have seen where over centuries our rules are made by men, because that is how it has been, not just in this country, Mr. President, but all over the world, requires a paradigm change, which means that a representative, a 10% representative is not sufficient. That is what I'm trying to say. So although I am pleased to acknowledge that women, there are specific, in fact, there are a number of provisions that include women in the list of representatives that must be present. My point is that one representative is not sufficient. We must create that culture that the perspective of a woman in everything is considered. So, for example, it has been my lone task in the years that I have been in the Senate to review the measures that we pass from a gender perspective. So even though the measure is not something that is referred to the Committee on Women, I did not chair this committee for the two congresses that I was here. I only chaired it in my last term. I have reviewed this because we need to ensure, for example, a bill on disaster risk management, which is now a law, the law on agrarian reform. All of this we reviewed from a gender perspective because, again, as I will emphasize, these laws have been made from a perspective of a man. So that is simply where I'm coming in, Mr. President. And I will illustrate my point. In section 76, it refers, and His Honor did point this out, participation of women in the Bangsamoro regional government. Aside from the reserved seat for women in parliament, there shall be at least one qualified woman to be appointed in the Bangsamoro cabinet. That is a token representation, Mr. President. There is no reason why we should say there should be only one. If I were to put a number here, I would say at least 30%. There are many women with masters and PhDs from Mindanao, and I'm sure from the Bangsamoro region, who would deserve to take this seat. And the reason why I need there to be more than one is because we know that in any cabinet meeting, in any high-level meeting, there will be a discussion, and we want to be sure that that woman's perspective is taken into serious concern. If she is just one voice, no matter what I say, no matter how outspoken she is, it diminishes the strength of that voice. Well, I have other things to say, but let me pause at this point in case His Honor would like to say anything.
Well, once again, if there is a way that we could do it with the that will be practicable, because again, you, as can be imagined, in terms of a cultural change, that would certainly be a very large paradigm shift. But be that as it may, if there is a way to equalize the representation of women in these high offices, I cannot see, at least you will not hear any argument from myself.
If I may butt in, from a man who is surrounded by very qualified, intelligent, dominant women from his mother, sisters, and his wife. I know you can answer no other way.
Well, I could answer another way, but we'll have to face the consequences when I leave the plenary hall. But in any case, it is my own personal opinion that in many cases, and I would even venture to say in most cases, women present a more common sense reaction to situations than men do. But again, we must also the appointment of women, the election of women in high offices is non-traditional. Is a non-traditional role for women in Muslim communities, and that is why I say that this would be a large paradigm shift. However, if we can do it in a practical way, then certainly that would be something that we would want to do. Because we would equalize, as I said, the representation of men and women. And we are starting to approach that kind of representation in the national government only because we are essentially, I'd venture to say, we are essentially in the Philippines a matriarchal society. And in that regard, the respect that we have for our women is very clear from childhood onwards. I remember very clearly when my mother being asked by a foreign journalist whether or not she supported equal rights of men and women in the Philippines. She said equal rights for men and women in the Philippines would be a demotion for me, because we are highly regarded in the Philippines. And I think that we could be consistent with that idea. Yes. And that is why, if there is a practical way to do it, if there is a way to write it into the law so that that is assured, then certainly we would accept any suggestions, and we would be happy to discuss it with the proponent of any such amendment.
Well, with that quote, Mr. President, my earlier thoughts is confirmed that I am talking to the right person when it comes to whatever amendments I deem would be beneficial to further promote equality for women. But seriously, Mr. President, on that note, I would like to venture to address His Honor's concern that this may be a drastic paradigm shift. As I have said many times, when it comes to Filipinos accepting a female leader, I feel the same way about Filipino Muslims. I do not believe it makes any difference, because in the same way I have said that the Filipinos have had no problem electing 2 women presidents, and therefore does it mean that we no longer should worry about gender issues or more women in politics because we have achieved that goal of electing a woman to the highest position? My answer is no, we do not stop there, because that opportunity is not open to all women. That situation does not duplicate itself as rapidly as it should. I go back to the statistics we have that there is only a very small % of women in representing the city and municipal councils and the provincial boards. And again, back to Congress, it's 25%. But what it tells us is that there is no resistance if the opportunity is there. In other words, if we made public office easier to attain for more women, then definitely the Filipinos would have no problem electing these qualified women. That's what I'm trying to say. So if you look at the existing ARMM Legislative Assembly, they have already elected 16%. Therefore, it means okay sa kanila yon, no? It's not as if there's just 1, there's just 2. No, it's okay. But how many of them get that opportunity? And again, if you look at the records, probably, and this is reflected not just nationwide but all over the world, these are usually women who have had various types of exposures, such as being related, either being the wife of, the daughter of, I am the daughter of a previous former senator, having an opportunity to present themselves, such as having a career in media, and like many other politicians. So it's really that opportunity to present yourself. So that is actually what I'm going back to. Just opening the door, having more, I mentioned information campaigns, advocacy, to open that door for more women to take on this position. But I believe his Honor has responded more than adequately to my concern, and at the proper time, I will make some recommendations. Let me go on now. I will just spend just a few more minutes so that I can wrap up my concern on women's issues. Section 76 refers to, again, this is a provision on participation of women in the Bangsamoro regional government. The second sentence states that the Bangsamoro Parliament shall enact laws that give recognition to the important role of women in nation building and regional development, and ensure representation of women in other decision-making and policy determining bodies of the Bangsamoro regional government. Well, my intention, Mr. President, is to submit amendments to the sponsor such that there will be no need to enact a law, at least recognizing opening opportunities for women. Probably, and I'm not saying for sure that I will recommend a percentage of women that should be included in every political party that will be fielding a candidate, but I will be recommending a % for the number of women in the cabinet. And then I want to just be sure that this provision shall enact laws that give recognition to women shall not be limited in its we should not look at this in a limiting way, such that until such laws are passed by the local legislative assembly, we do not take cognizance of the Magna Carta of Women and other existing national laws that already recognize the rights of women and the important role that they play in society, Mr. President?
Mr. President, it's my understanding that Section 76 doesn't speak only of laws that are specific to the encouragement of women's, the advocacies of women's rights, of the women's position, but more so that not only that the laws should be passed that treat men and women equally, but furthermore, that give recognition, as it says, to the important role of women. And I think that we can certainly strengthen the language so that it is very clear that not only are we talking about equality, but we are talking about recognition of the very, very singular, special role that women play in our society and in our lives as a nation. And that is something that clearly, I agree with the gentle lady that certainly I do not think that there will be any resistance from any quarter in that regard, as we, at least in the Philippines, are fully have fully recognized and fully appreciate and certainly fully respect the role that women play. But to go back to the point that was made earlier, that not all women get the opportunity, then I would just like to point out we are beginning to delve now into, when we speak of those things, we are beginning to delve now into the role of women in society. And that perhaps might be a larger question than we can fully address in the basic law.
Thank you, Mr. President. I go now to Section 75, also on women, on the protection of women and children. And the first sentence states, the Bangsamoro Regional Government shall uphold and protect the fundamental rights of women and children, including the right of women to engage in lawful employment. Second sentence, women and children, especially orphans of tender age, shall be protected from exploitation, abuse, or discrimination, and from all forms of sexual and gender-based violence, especially in times of disaster, calamity, and other crisis situation. Mr. President, I'd like to point out a concern that I have always had, and this is with respect to the lower age of marriage of women under the Sharia law. When our family code was passed in, I think it took effect in 1992, it included, no, actually, was it done before that? I am now, dinatnan ko na yon. Well, in any case, I can't remember the exact date that the amendment was made, increasing the age from marriageable age of girls from 14 to 18. As it stands now, it is 18. I just can't recall if that was an amendment made to the family code or earlier in the civil code. Anyway, it's 18 now. And the Sharia law still retains a lower marriage age. All over the world, again, Mr. President, it is acknowledged that at a tender age of 14, 16, actually even 18, if you ask me, I think many in this hall who have daughters would not want their daughters to get married at 18, but it is the legal age, will recognize that the longer the girls have time to mature, to stay in school, to mature socially, physically, to gain a craft, a trade, a profession, will be better for her and her family in the future. And thus, that remains to be a concern of mine. My question, Your Honor, is would it be possible to introduce at the right time that even at the very least that type of change can be introduced here, or do we have to wait for a Sharia law review to happen? Again, I emphasize that this is not in any way interfering with any religion, but it is acknowledging a basic human right. It is a physiological reality that at a certain age, girls, and for that matter, boys, are still developing. They should still be in school. They should not be married. Is this something that we can address? Because otherwise, this remains to be promises in the clouds for me.
Well, that would really have to do more with amendments or changes to the Sharia law, and not the basic law, because the Sharia law is states very clearly, that the marrying age of women is much lower than as specified in our family law. So there will be reviews because the Sharia courts will still be under the supervision of the Supreme Court. And in that regard, certainly they can conduct such a review. But again, any changes to the Sharia law would still require, I suppose, consultation with the scholars, the imams, and those that specialize in the issues of Sharia law and its application, specifically in our case. So we would have to revisit that issue when that re-examination or review comes about, and we had not actually anticipated in the basic law that we would impose such a review. I think that we would have to leave it up to the Supreme Court to decide if and when they would like to bring up the issue, since the Sharia courts are still under the supervision of the Supreme Court.
Anyway, I will make my specific amendments at the right time, or I might ask a few more clarificatory questions on that note, Mr. President.
Another option is that if the Bangsamoro Parliament should decide that particular aspect of the Sharia law be revisited and be amended, then the Bangsamoro Parliament is certainly free to do so.
Yes, we know that, Mr. President, and that's precisely why I'm trying to present a complete picture here, which is why you need more women in Parliament, which is why you need more women in other decision-making positions, so that these concerns will have a strong voice. In fact, they do not remain a silent voice or a side issue. No? They become crucial to the decision-making process in every aspect, because until that happens, you will continue to have less women qualified, because there may just be more young girls. There will continue to be more young girls being married at tender ages, more young girls not being able to reap the full benefit of economic progress. That is what I also want to ensure, as we all recognize that the goal here is progress, whether it is economic, social, personal. We want to be sure that girls do not get left behind. And if the decision making is left to only one sector, and to me, I consider that one sector, if you say it's male dominated, then there is a tendency for it to be left behind. With 3 women in Parliament, now 6, 3 at one point in my term, now 6. And I have seen the change in thinking among my male colleagues. Kudos to all the males sitting here today. I have seen a shift in understanding the depth of women's issues. Even I continue to be educated. Issues that I sometimes initially will think, that's a non-issue, that's overkill, maarte naman, we're being too sensitive. Eventually, I realized that, no, there's no such thing as an issue that's too small or too little or too one-sided. If it's something that predominantly affects women, then it's an issue for women. And until there are more women in leadership roles, I believe that will continue to be the case. One last case in point, before I think I can leave this issue, is Section 118 on staffing level, which refers to the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region Police. It recognizes, and I'll read the second paragraph, the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region Police shall prioritize the recruitment and training of women who shall serve in women's desks. I totally recognize that the objective of this sentence is to ensure that there are women manning the women's desk, because it is a sensitive position in the sense that if there is a rape or some kind of sexual assault, obviously a female victim would be more comfortable with a female police asking her questions, investigating, etc. But what we want to be sure that this is not interpreted to mean is that only women should be trained on understanding women's issues, because precisely why we continue to have a problem is, first, the first step was to acknowledge that let's put more women in the police force to address these issues and other issues. Fine. So there are now more women addressing these issues. But then, many times, it becomes just a women's issue, which it is not. That's why my point was we want to be sure that this is not interpreted to mean that that is the domain of women, let women handle that alone. There has to be a continuing education process so that men recognize that sexual violence against women and girls, illegal recruitment for the purpose of sexual exploitations are real and genuine concerns. We need both men and women on the force to recognize this as a serious problem.
I believe that there is, I am looking for the specific section, but there is a provision that provides for a GAD provision, if you choose to call it. But I do not think that it's specific to the police force, and neither do I think that it should be. I think should there be such a program, that it would be government-wide in the same fashion as it is in the national government. So. It is in section 160. I'm sorry, 163, where it's under the title Gender and Development. And then it speaks of the Bangsamoro government ensuring a fundamental equality before the law of men and women, and furthermore, in the utilization of public funds, the Bangsamoro regional government shall ensure needs of women are adequately addressed, and for this purpose, 5% of the total budget appropriation of each ministry and office of the Bangsamoro regional government is set aside for a GAD plan. In the same manner, at least 5% up to 30% of the official development funds received by the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region shall be set aside to complement said GAD allocation. And so there are such provisions for these gender equality programs, and but as I said, this is government-wide and it's not specific for police. Perhaps it could be argued that in the case of the police, it is more sensitive because they are generally, once these issues come up to the police, that already means that the persons in question, women or otherwise, are already in distress, and perhaps that is why we have to be more sensitive and be more knowledgeable in handling those issues. So again, if there are such ideas, the lady is an expert on these issues. I am not. If there are any principles or concepts that we could apply beyond the government-wide GAD program, perhaps, and specific to the police, for the women in police, and in the handling of women's issues, then certainly we would be happy to be informed and to be made more knowledgeable of such concepts, that we might put it in and apply it to this. That is something that in this case I feel does not only apply in Bangsamoro Autonomous Region, but it certainly applies to all government.
Mr. President, that's all I have for today on women's, and the next time I interpolate, I will go to other issues. Thank you so much for the gentleman's patience in my dealing with my questions all about women. But again, I know that he is very gender sensitive because of his upbringing and personal circumstances. And for that, I know if I stayed for another 2 hours asking these kind of questions, he would oblige. Thank you, Mr. President.
We would spend as much time as is necessary, Mr. President, to make sure that such issues are properly addressed. And we know that the advocacies of the good lady senator are advocacies of value and make a difference in people's lives. So we are happy to do that now or at any time in the future. Thank you, Mr. President.
Mr. President,
Mr. Majority Leader.
I move that we suspend consideration of Senate Bill 2894.
Consideration of the measure is suspended.
Mr. President, there being no other business to take up, I move that we adjourn the session until...
There are a number of items in our order of business.
The reference. The
reference of business.
I'm sorry, I withdraw the motion, Mr. President. I move for the reference of business.
The Secretary will read the reference of business.
House number 4836, an act requiring the parallel translation in Filipino or in any major Philippine regional or indigenous language of the employment contract of the overseas Filipino worker.
Labor, Employment, and Human Resource Development.
House number 5988, an act granting the overseas Filipino workers the right to equal protection on money claims, amending for the purpose the fifth paragraph of Section 10 of RA 8042 as amended by RA number 10022.
Committee on Labor, Employment, Human Resource Development, Foreign Relations.
House number 5617, an act establishing the regulatory framework for the safe operations of the liquefied petroleum gas industry and penalizing certain prohibited acts.
Trade, Commerce, and Entrepreneurship, Energy, and Finance.
House number 5846, an act declaring the province of Marinduque a mining-free zone. House number 5869, entitled an act reclassifying as agricultural land open to disposition under the provisions of the Public Land Act as amended, the land embraced in Proclamation number 602 dated April 12, 2004, declaring as ecotourism park and campsite purposes a certain parcel of land of the public domain situated in Barangays Lumigan and Moriones, including a parcel of land situated in Barangay Iba, all in the municipality of San Jose, province of Tarlac, and House number 5957, entitled an act declaring the municipality of Kibungan, province of Benguet, a mining-free zone and providing penalties for violation thereof.
Environment and Natural Resources.
House number 5863, an act converting the Hulo Elementary School in Barangay Hulo, City of Mandaluyong, into an integrated school to be known as Hulo Integrated School and appropriating funds therefore. House number 5885, an act converting the Cebu Normal University Medellin Satellite Campus in the municipality of Medellin, province of Cebu, into a regular campus of the Cebu Normal University to be known as the Cebu Normal University Medellin Campus and appropriating funds therefore. House number 5895, an act institutionalizing the National Career Assessment Examination to provide a career direction program for secondary school students, providing penalties for violations and appropriating funds therefore. House number 5960, an act converting the Lakeview Elementary School in the Pedro E. Diaz High School Lakeview Annex in Barangay Putatan, City of Muntinlupa, Metro Manila, into an integrated school to be known as Lakeview Integrated School and appropriating funds therefore. And House number 5961, an act separating the Padada National High School Malinaw Extension in Barangay Lower Malinaw, Municipality of Padada, Province of Davao del Sur, from the Padada National High School, converting it into an independent national high school to be known as Malinaw National High School of Arts and Trade and appropriating funds therefore.
Education, Arts and Culture, Finance.
House number 5991, an act converting the Northwestern Mindanao State College of Science and Technology in the city of Tangub, province of Misamis Occidental, into a state university to be known as the University of Northwestern Mindanao, integrating therewith the satellite campuses of the Mindanao University of Science and Technology in the city of Oroquieta and in the municipality of Panaon, both located in the province of Misamis Occidental, and appropriating funds therefore. House number 5992, an act establishing the Misamis Occidental State College in the city of Oroquieta, province of Misamis Occidental, integrating therewith the Oroquieta Agro-Industrial School in Barangay Villaflor, Oroquieta City, and appropriating funds therefore. House number 5993, an act establishing the South Cotabato State College in the municipality of Surala, province of South Cotabato, integrating therewith the Surala National Agricultural School located in the municipality of Surala and appropriating funds therefore. And House number 5978, an act designating the Philippine National Performing Arts Companies, defining the roles and functions and appropriating funds therefore.
Committees on Education, Arts and Culture, Ways and Means, Finance.
House Number 5900, an act changing the name of the St. Lorenzo Ruiz Municipal Hospital in Malabon City to San Lorenzo Ruiz Hospital, increasing its bed capacity from 10 to 50 beds and appropriating funds. Therefore, House Number 5901, an act increasing the bed capacity of the Governor Celestino Gallares Memorial Hospital in Tagbilaran City, Province of Bohol, from 225 to 526 beds and appropriating funds. Therefore, and House Number 5954, an act increasing the bed capacity of the Dr. Rafael S. Tumbocon Memorial Hospital in the Municipality of Calibo, Province of Aklan, from 162 to 400 beds and appropriating funds. Therefore,
Health and Demography, Finance.
House Number 5995, an act establishing a free basic medicine assistance program in all government health facilities nationwide and appropriating funds. Therefore,
Health and Demography, Social Justice, Welfare, Rural Development, Finance.
House Number 5902, an act granting discounts on basic and educational services to underprivileged higher and technical education students.
Education, Arts and Culture, Ways and Means.
House Number 5906, establishing the periods of prescription for certain offenses punishable by special acts and violations of local ordinances, and further providing the period when prescription shall begin to run, repealing for the purpose Act Number 3326 as amended.
Justice and Human Rights.
House Number 5907, recognizing the capacity of the Filipino spouse to remarry when the alien spouse has obtained a foreign judicial decree of absolute divorce, amending for the purpose Executive Order Number 209, otherwise known as the Family Code of the Philippines.
Women, Children, Family Relations, Gender Equality.
House Number 5910, an act authorizing the construction of a seaport in Barangay Mabini, Higatangan Island, Municipality of Naval, Province of Biliran, and providing funds. Therefore,
Public Works, Public Services, Finance.
House Number 5912, an act expanding the coverage of incentives granted to national athletes and coaches and appropriating funds. Therefore, repealing for the purpose RA 1964, also known as the National Athletes, Coaches, and Trainers Benefits and Incentives Acts of 2001, or Sports Benefits and Incentives Act of 2001.
Rules.
House Number 5940, renewing for another 25 years the franchise granted to Progressive Broadcasting Corporation under RA 7163 as amended by RA 8162, and House Number 5982, renewing for another 25 years and expanding to radio, television broadcasting national scope throughout the Philippines the franchise granted to Mabuhay Broadcasting System Inc. under RA number 7395, entitled an act granting the Mabuhay Broadcasting System Inc. a franchise to construct, install, operate, and maintain radio broadcasting stations in the island of Luzon and for other purposes.
Public Services.
House Number 5941, extending the deadline for compliance with the requirements of the Commission on Higher Education for conversion in State University, thereby amending Republic Act Number 10599, titled an act converting the Palompon Institute of Technology in the Municipality of Palompon, Province of Leyte, into a State University to be known as the Palompon Polytechnic State University, integrating therewith the Marcelino R. Veloso National Polytechnic College in the province, in the Municipality of Tabango, Province of Leyte, and appropriating funds therefore. And House Number 5953, entitled an act renaming the Philippine Public Safety College Regional Training School 7 in Consolacion, Province of Cebu, into the Camp Jesse M. Robredo Regional Training Center 7, National Police Training Institute, Philippine Public Safety College.
Education, Arts and Culture.
House Number 5956, an act mandating the Philippine Health Insurance Corporation to increase the coverage for dialysis treatment of members of the National Health Insurance Program to 90 sessions per year.
Government Corporations and Public Enterprises. Health and Demography.
House Number 5959, an act creating a barangay to be known as Barangay Masaw in the Municipality of Tungawan, Province of Zamboanga, Sibugay.
Local Government Electrical Reform, People's Participation.
House Number 5973, an act promulgating a comprehensive policy on needs of persons afflicted with rare disorders.
Health and Demography, Social Justice, Welfare, Rural Development, Ways and Means, Finance.
And House Number 5980, an act establishing the 2nd District Engineering Office in the Municipality of Compostela, Province of Compostela Valley, and appropriating funds therefore.
Public Works and Finance.
Bills on first reading, Senate Number 2917, an act to regulate fertilizer ingredients, Senator Defensor Santiago.
Trade, Commerce and Entrepreneurship, Health and Demography.
Senate number 2918, an act establishing tricycle driving training and motorist awareness program, Senator Defensor Santiago.
Public Services, Local Government Finance.
Senate number 2919, an act to establish a grant program to assist innovative natural disaster first
Local
responder
Government,
programs.
National Defense and Finance.
Senate number 2920, requiring all government employees to provide notice on any charges of conviction against them to the department or agency head.
Civil Service, Government Organization, Professional Regulation.
Resolutions, PS Resolution of 1546, directing the proper Senate committee to conduct an inquiry in aid of legislation on the Commission and Audit Report at 2 demonstration models for alternative mass transport systems in Metro Manila worth a total of 128 million pesos remain in operation after compiling.
Public Works.
1547, directing the proper Senate committee to conduct an inquiry in aid of Legislation Commission and Audit Report on some 350 million in fund transfers made by the Pag-asa remained unliquidated as of the end of 2014.
Science and Technology.
Yes, resolution number 1548, directing the proper Senate committee to conduct inquiry in aid of legislation, the Commission Audit Report that Marinduque officials use more than 900 million pesos in related
Local
funds.
Government and Finance.
Yes, resolution number 1549, directing Senate committee on Ways and Means to conduct inquiry in aid of legislation, the guidelines and procedures of the Bureau of Customs in monitoring, screening the balikbayan boxes arriving in the country with the end in view of institutionalizing practical policies and protocols, ensuring that the resources of the BOC are maximized for its mandate of curbing smuggling, Secretary Heritage Estrada.
Ways and Means.
1550, directing the proper Senate committee to conduct inquiry of legislation, the Commission on Audit Report that only 21 out of 80 airport facilities operated by CAAP were covered by government
Finance.
service system. Communication letter from the Office of the President of the Philippines transmitting to the Senate 2 regional copies of RA number 10669 titled An Act declaring August 18 of every year as Jesse Robredo Day, special working holiday for the purposes, signed by His Excellency President Benigno Aquino III.
To the Archives. Majority Leader.
Mr. President, I move that we adjourn session till 3 o'clock of the afternoon of Wednesday, September 2, 2015.
Session is adjourned until 3 o'clock in the afternoon of September 2, 2015.